And we should be live.
Ah.
Are we live? I think so,
Not
right?
that I can see yet, but there's a real good chance that we will be. It takes a while. It takes a couple of seconds.
There's 2 people are watching. That's probably me and Matt.
I don't expect a lot of people watching, actually. I didn't really announce it or anything.
No.
Yes, we're live.
Are we?
Is there sound? And we should be live. I hear myself.
Are we live? Oh, yeah. I think so, right?
Yeah, yes, we're live. Great.
Nice.
We have 3 viewers already.
Oh, that's
It's probably going to be
you.
us 3, right?
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and my mum.
Let me post a link to Facebook right now.
Tag me. Oh.
I'll tag you. Okay, so I'm going to say live now with Denis Chang and Matt Holborn.
Wait, we're live now?
Yeah, we're live.
You're doing this.
This is a great introduction, this. I like it.
Doesn't matter. I mean, I can... Okay. Oh, yeah, there's some people watching. JungleGuitars.com says noobs. Who's that? Hey, Tommy. Hey, hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. I'm doing a live stream today, which is not the usual thing I do, of course, because normally I have videos that are made in advance and carefully edited, but I thought it would be a nice opportunity to invite 2 of my friends, my Gypsy jazz friends, violin player Matt Holborn and guitar player, violin player Denis Chang, to discuss some topics. I have a list with topics, but the main topic would be our top 3 starter tips for jazz violin. So hello, Matt.
Hello.
Hello, Denis.
Hello.
Just in case, because of course my channel, it's a guitar channel. So just in case people don't know who you guys are, and they absolutely should, maybe you could introduce yourselves. So maybe Matt?
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm a violinist. I play jazz. That's the main thing, I guess. The other thing is I run the Jazz Violin Podcast, which is basically just a podcast where I interview all of the violinists who will answer my emails about about how they got into playing, and we just do a podcast. We do a podcast thing, an interview about.
But you had some famous people on.
I've had some famous jazz violinists.
You had me?
And I think famous jazz violinist is not the same as a famous person. Although,
yeah. Well,
I guess Jean-Luc Ponty had Jean-Luc on there.
Jean-Luc Ponty, Regina Carter?
She is a very famous person.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. I mean, so you just sent a mail and then she just reacted like, okay, yeah, I want to do it?
Yeah. Well, with Regina, she's really busy in general. She had replied a long time ago, but it just took ages for us to get anything sorted because she is a very busy person. But actually, with everyone suddenly not being busy, she could do it, and we just did it.
But was she aware of your podcast at all?
Hard to tell. Don't know. Maybe. Probably. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe not. I can imagine. I don't know. I don't know who is aware of my podcast.
I am.
Do you remember how we met, Matt? When we first met?
We first met. It'll be Samoa, right?
Samoa, yeah, Samoa. We're gonna talk about that. Yeah. So we met. I think you're always at Samoa. That's like during the famous festival in France. There's a camping site where lots of the musicians are, and they jam all day. That's what they do, right? And you're always there with like the British Gypsy Jazz syndicate, right? Yeah. And they're always together, and so I just walk around, and then I go jam everywhere, and that's how I met Matt for the first time. And Denis, maybe introduce yourself, although I think most people actually know you because you're a guitar player as well.
I play guitar. I play violin as a hobby. It's just for fun. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
And you're in Taiwan right now, right?
I am.
Which is one of the few places in the world that isn't locked down.
Never was.
So you can, so you can actually go out and jam every night, right?
Recently, because there was a period 1 month ago when they asked all the Taiwanese nationals to come back to Taiwan. So a lot of people were fearful, but
Oh yeah.
that's passed, and now people are going out.
Okay,
So now
great.
I am going out to jam.
So yeah, we want to discuss our top 3 starter jazz violin tips. But first, I want to just like talk a little bit about what's going on in our lives right now, because of course we're all locked down to different levels. I think the UK is really like locked down tight, right? You can't even go outside, or what is the deal?
We can go outside. You can go out. You can go out to exercise and to buy yourself some food. And you can exercise once a day. Is
Yeah,
that
but
not the same?
so how do they monitor it?
I mean, they don't. But
Okay.
like there's more police wandering around than there would usually be. And if they see you like in a group hanging out or whatever, then they'll like disperse you.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean it's not monitored. It's not monitored fully, is it? I mean,
Right.
If you go to the park just down the way, there's hundreds of people just drinking beers and stuff. It's a point of contention here. That
But there's no possibility for you to like jam or you can jam outside maybe.
it's not. It's basically it's not a thing right now, and it's not been a thing for the last actually I don't even know. I don't even know what day it is. I don't know, but it's definitely not a thing. You can't jam. You can't meet up. If you were to be seen like meeting up outside, someone would stop you, because as well, if we were to jam outside,
People would watch it.
maybe
Yeah.
maybe I'm being optimistic, but I reckon people would stop and watch.
No,
and,
no, no, definitely. I mean, that would be one of the very few rare opportunities to actually see live music again. So,
yeah.
but you are in a group with Kurosh, right?
Is it? I play in a group with Kurosh.
Yeah, and Jeremy, right?
Yeah. We started this thing, the London Django Collective,
Right. Yeah.
last year, and it's basically a nice collective of musicians who live in London who play like the style of Django, and we it's a big heavy emphasis on original music.
But you haven't met you haven't met each other at all, like or
Well, actually, I went into what's it called? So I had to isolate myself because I was with someone who perhaps was showing COVID.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, right at the start, before the lockdown happened, it was like this middle of March. Moved into this flat because we were moving house. Moved in, we weren't allowed to leave. So yeah, I've been in this house a long time.
Yeah.
Anyway, at that point, we weren't allowed to leave the house at all, even to go to the shops. So Kurosh did come round with some food for me. Which
Okay. Oh, that's
it's the last time I've seen his face.
so because I want to get a sense of how often did you guys meet to like jam, play, or perform or rehearse before this all started?
Oh, we'd be playing at least once a week. We'd be rehearsing, once every couple of weeks, and yeah, we'd be, we'd perhaps not always with Kurosh, but there's always be some sort of jam
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah, because that's the sense I got from Facebook, right? You were very active, making videos, posting. It's like wow. I was like at one point, it was like I should move to London.
Yeah,
Lots of stuff happening there.
yeah.
And
Well, that is, remember that is social media for
I
you.
know.
It's just-
Still though. Dennis,
Yeah.
so you're not locked down at all, right? It's like
That's right.
so. How's the music scene in Taiwan?
It's as far as jazz goes, it's very, very new, but it's okay because I've been bored lately. I started working on some like mainstream standards and I go to all the jam sessions and jam with everyone. Just try to learn tunes.
But that's mainstream, so there's no real gypsy jazz scene or
Yeah, no,
no.
forget about that.
I saw a video of you at one of those jams, but you were only playing gypsy jazz licks.
I know. I did that on purpose.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
I did that on purpose.
Are there any other jazz guitar players?
Yeah, there are quite a few. Most of them are interested in like modern jazz. So I've only seen one person who plays in like the old bebop style.
Oh yeah, okay. So
'Cause most people go to Berkeley to study. Like they learn jazz through music school. So it's all about what's the latest hip thing.
Can you turn yourself a little up, Dennis, like a little bit? I think you're a little lower in volume than Matt, just a little bit.
Okay, here we go.
So, and for me, like the Netherlands always talked about like the smart lockdown, right? So that means that we're not monitored. We can go outside to actually do whatever you want. You can go to the shop 10 times a day. Of course, they rather you don't do that. But as long as we keep 1.5 meter distance and don't gather in groups larger than 3 people, I think. But the thing is, when I go outside, I see groups that are larger than 3 people all the time. So you can get a fine, but I haven't heard of many people that actually got a fine. So yeah.
But you can meet people out with your household. Is that right?
Yeah. You can also meet friends as long as you keep the 1.5 meter distance. So I guess and technically you could go to a park and jam.
Yeah.
But yeah, as soon as there's a group of more than 3 people, then that's problem.
But you're not allowed inside someone else's house.
No, you are. But then also they enforce like, okay, then but also keep the 1.5 meter distance then. Right? They appeal to your own consciousness, like to your own responsibility to do that, right? And then they say, okay, we can have this kind of freedom. The definition of freedom changed a lot. As long as it's going well, like as long as we're not going to the hospital in big numbers. Yeah. But if that would happen, then maybe the rules would change. But for now, it's like this. But of course, there's no restaurants, there's no concerts, not even possible, because they're talking about that it would be possible to open up theaters for not more than 30 people in the audience, like 30 people. So I was talking to some colleagues. That would either mean that you have to do like 5 concerts in a night to get maybe 150 people for the same fee, right? Because or it would mean that you have to play for 30 people, but like which theater is going to open its doors to accommodate 30 people in the audience when they can like seat 500 people? So and that's if you have a big theater. Like if you have a small theater and you cannot guarantee the 1.5 meter distance between every person there, unless of course you're with your husband or your wife, then your small theater, maybe you can host 5 people. So I mean, and this is like the thing I am worried about. Like, how is live music ever going to come back with these measures? Do you see any, Dennis? Do you see any possibility for live music happening again in Canada anytime soon?
Right now, I think Canada's not doing very well. I heard. I'm not sure. So let's even see what happens in the next few months, let alone like next year. No, it doesn't look good.
No. I'm getting here that the volume is very low compared to regular videos. Yeah, that could be. So how can I, Dennis? Because I'm in the studio. Is there a way?
OBS, you can raise the volume in OBS on the right, bottom right.
Bottom right.
And then there's audios, and you see whatever you want to raise. It's like a meter.
Really? I don't see it. I see only my microphone, but I can put my microphone a little bit louder, and I can put you guys louder. Yeah. I just put everyone louder, like this.
Okay.
How's that?
So let me know if that's better for the people that are watching. Randy said it was low. So is it louder now? Better?
Hey, Randy.
So you were saying, Dennis, like Canada is going to be difficult?
I think so. It's looking very scary. I mean, a lot of festivals saying they're gonna move back. Last month they said we're gonna move our festival to September, October. I don't know.
Yeah. So because
wishful thinking.
Yeah. What about you, Matt? Do you see any possibility of live music?
Well, actually, right now, I think right as we speak, Boris Johnson is actually telling us what's going on for the next 6 months. I forgot that. I'm missing that, actually. He's doing his like live broadcast, being like, "This is what's going to happen," but I don't think so. To be honest, I don't see it. I mean, I'm still booked for some things at like late summer, but I just don't see it happening. And I'm sort of for me, I'd prefer to expect the worst and try to accept it from now, rather than thinking, "Oh God, do you reckon my gig's gonna go?" I'm just thinking they've all gone, no gigs. Just try and accept it. It'll take a while.
That's what I've done. That's what I accepted.
Is there a plan from the government to help artists or like musicians?
there is a plan to help self-employed people.
Yeah.
And, employed people and self-employed people. We seemingly will get 80% of our, of an average of our last 3 years of tax returns. So if you've been doing your taxes, you're all right.
Really? But you think that's going to happen? That actually sounds pretty good.
I mean, there's nothing to suggest it won't happen, other than, well, actually, no, that's not true, because nothing is sure anymore. But yeah, I'm actually hopefully optimistic about that. Maybe wrongly so. Maybe you've made me think. Maybe I'm not.
Well, no, but it's because the first week the Netherlands went on lockdown. Let's say they call it a smart lockdown. I was talking about that. They said, okay, all self-employed people. It's called ZZP, ZZP. It's called all self-employed people, which are mostly all musicians, will get 1,500 euros a month for the first 3 months. No questions asked, they said.
Oh, wow.
Like for me, that was pretty good, of course, because I mean, I make a lot of my income online, right? So that's not going away. But then 2 weeks later, they changed it to no, we're gonna
ask questions.
No, we're gonna, also ask questions. But also, if you make more than 1,500, you're not getting anything. You're just getting to 1,500. So let's say you make 600, you would get 1,100, right? But then you have to prove that you'd be making that. There would have been lots of paperwork, but there's lots of people that just do like little gigs, like last call gigs, or there's like a booking agency that just canceled everything. So it's a big problem, and then you have to ask for that money per city, right? And some cities are very quick. You can imagine like a very small city, it's going to be quick. But like if you live in The Hague, where I live, it's very slow. So I know lots of musicians in The Hague actually that didn't get anything yet, but they asked for it like a month ago, right? So, and this is just the beginning. So, because I can see live music coming back for the next year, let's say for the next year, like I wonder how this is gonna go. Like, I hear musicians talk about getting a job in like a grocery store or.
I've thought about it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, for the moment, I'm surviving just about. I do a bit of online teaching, probably not as much as yourself. I don't have as much of an online job as you do, but I do a bit of online teaching, and also actually I am very lucky with one of my teaching jobs outside of the online stuff. They're actually giving us, they're paying us. So I don't know. For me, I don't know. What's funny is listening to you talk about it. It's sort of like it's bringing me back to when you're like a kid, and you and all your friends are telling you like what their parents are allowing them to do at home, and you're like, oh, that's not fair. Like, what's going on with you there?
It is a little bit like that. Yeah.
It's funny. I'm hearing all this, and I'm like, that sounds great. And I'm like, oh wait, no, mate, no, I think ours is better.
I would like to be in Taiwan, because I mean, I look at those jam sessions that Denis is going to, and like, I want to go to a jam session. So are you going to stay there, Denis? Are you going to stay in Taiwan, or?
Well, it's not safe in Canada right now, and even if I go back to Canada, I have no work waiting for me, and I have to quarantine 2 weeks. Why would I do that?
Yeah, right. Yeah. But can you work in Taiwan? Are you allowed to work in Taiwan?
No, but I'm under this program called the CERB, which a month ago was very bad for musicians because it was poorly defined, but they've relaxed the definition. So now I get $2,000 a month Canadian.
In Canada? Wow.
No, I get a deposit to my bank directly. You just apply through, because we have a website for filing income tax. So you just apply, and it's within 2 days they send you $2,000.
You know,
you win.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, because also this kind of shows like how important culture is in the country or something, or how important the government considers art to be, right?
Yeah.
So, for instance, in the Netherlands, like we have a kind of a weird government consisting of parties that are very happy to accommodate culture, but there's also some parties that are they think it's like a hobby, right? They call it a leftist hobby. That's that's the terminology for it. And the most ironic thing is that the provinces in the Netherlands that are hit the hardest by the virus, because we have our own little Italy in the Netherlands, so it's really bad there. those provinces are ruled by those parties, and they just released their new budget, and they just put all the funding for arts at €0, like
Oh wow.
zero. So that would mean that all theaters there won't get any funding, and they're not making any money as it is, right? So, yeah, that's just
Man.
if you look at that and then you think, wow, so like art means nothing, or it means nothing. So, but apparently in Canada, they think it's important, and the UK, it's also kind of important then.
The UK, they've been a lot more blanket. They're not talking about arts. I've not heard anything about the arts at all from the government. They're not really saying, hey, we know that musicians are out there and we want to help them. But they have been, they've put it a big blanket out there, and it's like everyone who's self-employed. They realize that there's a lot of people who are self-employed out there, who are going to need the money, and we fall within that category. I feel like maybe we're just lucky that that's how they've done it, and I don't think, because the UK, we're pretty conservative country in general, and we have been slowly veering that way as time's gone on. So
my thing wasn't for the arts though. My thing was for people who lost all their income. So I fall under that category. But in the beginning, it was very bad for musicians because they didn't understand, so they relaxed some of the conditions.
Okay.
Now I'm eligible.
But most musicians would have lost all their income, right? So they would all fall under this law.
Yeah, but before that, there was some really stupid thing preventing them. Like you weren't allowed to teach online lessons.
Really?
Now you're allowed.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Like I
now
said,
it's relaxed.
I mean, that's a solution that many musicians are trying now, right? Teaching online lessons through Zoom, probably. Actually, I took a workshop with Peter Bernstein last week, last Saturday. So I guess he's doing it, or the plan was to do it every Saturday, and it was actually really, really nice. There were 20 guitar players or something in Zoom, and Peter was just answering questions, demonstrating how to comb rhythm changes, or he played a great solo version of There Will Never Be Another You, which I've never heard him play solo like that, right? So, and it was $20, so it was not a lot of money. And I think for Peter Bernstein, that is a good plan. Although, of course, he's still not making the money he was making giving concerts. But for people that are not as famous, I wonder difficult. If everybody's going to teach online, how many students are there? It's not unlimited. So
yeah, I think that there's a big, everyone's suddenly gone onto it, right? So, and if your favorite guitarist, if Peter Bernstein's doing a workshop, who are you going to go and do the workshop with? You're going to go straight to that guy.
In fact, I was looking around the classroom, and there were like a couple of like pretty well-known guitar players in that workshop. So
amazing. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Are any of you teaching online on Zoom or Skype or?
Nope.
Because I know Matt, because that's why I'm asking. You're doing this thing 3 times a week, right?
So I do like a scale practice session 3 times a week.
Ah, nice.
And we find it's basically running scales on the violin in ways that jazz musicians might run a scale. Not just jazz musicians, but in a way that will help you get from not being an improviser to being an improviser. And actually, those are free. These are scale sessions for professional musicians who want to get into playing jazz or improvise stuff. And it's also practice for me. So I'm practicing, and they're just practicing along with me. I'm saying, hey, this is what I'm working on at the moment, and I do it, and I do it over and over again.
Are you doing this on Zoom?
Yeah. And the thing, you should come do it.
Yeah, man, I want to join once.
Yeah, come do it.
But how do you play? Do you play together, or
no,
how does it work?
Everyone's muted. So this is the thing, right? This is for me. It's about trying to find. I mean, I'm not. I don't know. I'm not the best in the world, but what I know is that we need to find the positives out of the pretty terrible negative situation. And the actual positives from Zoom teaching and Zoom workshops is there's no for example, right? If you're teaching a workshop at a Gypsy Jazz camp like you might be doing, everyone who's turning up has probably got this slight feeling of like performance anxiety before they get there. They're probably thinking, I'm gonna have to play in front of this guy. I don't know if it's gonna, and
I had
he's
that,
gonna
yeah.
make me do this thing, and I'm not gonna understand. I might not get it straight away, and then I'll have to do it, and I'm gonna sound terrible. But with Zoom, that's not there. Everyone's muted. The person running the session is the only one that can be heard, and everyone can try out different concepts that they would never have felt as relaxed enough to try out in real life, because you got everyone watching you, like, oh god, it's a different thing. So my Zoom practice sessions, we do practice sessions together. It's only me who has to deal with playing it right, and I don't always play it right. And then that's for free. And then afterwards, I say, hey guys, if you guys are trying to get into jazz violin, you're more than welcome to join me for a donation.
Right.
Whatever you see fit, and come do it. And I do that 3 times a week. And some people
and you just bought a new car, right?
Yeah. So yeah.
But before I go to Dennis, because that's actually what I wanted to talk about next. Like, what have you developed anything that you would have never developed if it wasn't for this crisis? So, like, talk about the positive. So you have this.
That's that. For me, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, and anything else? Are you doing more podcast episodes or?
So yeah, I do. I have actually started another podcast as well, because as I said at the beginning, I run the Jazz Violin podcast, but I have also started a podcast called Locked in the Green Room, where I'm chatting to different musicians. Basically, a little chat quite similar to this about how musicians are doing at this time and what they've been up to, what they're working on, if they're working on anything at all. It depends on the person. Each guest has been different. Some people we talk about, what they're cooking, and some people we talk about what they're practicing. It's nice. It's just as much for me and the guest as it is for anyone who wants to listen. But
I will put. You should send me the links to all those things, and I'll put them, of course, in the description. Right?
Please do, yeah.
And Dennis, so I know you've been now doing this thing with some Sinti players, right?
Yeah.
So can you tell us something about that? How did it happen? Are you planning to do more? How's it going?
I don't want to do any of those because I'm not taking really much money from that. It's just to help them out. It's started with Benji Winterstein, who wanted advice on how to give lessons online. I told him, just do it. It's like, I want to do it with you. It's like, because he didn't want to go through all the trouble of, So I said, all right, let's try one thing. It worked out fine. Then I talked to a lot of my other friends like Rocky, Birelli, Anton. They say, yeah, we lost all our gigs. Don't know what to do. They were feeling bored, so they accepted to do this. And I give them pretty much all the money.
Yeah.
So I've been doing one once a week. Yeah, that's it. But it's not. I find out it's not very enjoyable for me. It's the kind of work, the administration, the logistics.
Yeah, you're the moderator, right? You're more the moderator.
Yeah.
Yeah. I watched the one with Rocky. I thought it was great. Rocky was playing amazing. I heard that he wasn't the happiest with his own playing, but I thought it was absolutely amazing. And then yesterday he did Adrien Monniard, who was also playing great. So is there any more lined up?
I need to test the internet connection with Angelo De Barba. We'll do one with Angelo De Barba Saturday if his internet connection is good.
Yeah. And how's your school? So Dennis also has a DC Music School, which was probably the first. Were you first, or was the Rosenberg Academy first?
I don't remember. I think Rosenberg Academy might have been the same time. Well, first, actually, you might have been first.
Okay, well, but one of the first, the first online teaching schools, academies for Gypsy jazz. Right now, of course, there's many more kinds of music, but is it still running, or how do you run it from Taiwan? How do you do that?
My buddy Zach is the one actually in charge of almost everything. Basically, what I do with DC Music School now is oversee the big picture. Have the executive decision, but pretty much Zach is running the website for me.
Overseeing the big picture and cashing the big checks, right?
Hey, Zach. That's good.
No, I'm kidding. Well, I know Zach. Yeah. Zach is great. He's a hard worker. So he's in Montreal then, doing like what is he doing? Like transcribing, video editing.
He's the transcriber is my guy in Taiwan. So he's running pretty much the website, video editing, audio editing, everything, like subtitles, all that.
So did you notice any increase in like clients because of this, or a decrease, or whatever?
Well, what I did is I did this thing because I know a lot of musicians lost all their gigs and were seriously hit by it. So I did this video saying that I would not donate, but I usually pay the musicians once a year because that's the way the site does the accounting. But I told them I would pay everyone what we made so far in the month of May. So more people did buy stuff. So then on the 1st of May, I sent everyone what I owed them.
Because the Roseburg Academy, because the Roseburg Academy still exists, of course, and there's like a ton of stuff. I mean, it's not really necessary to add more stuff. There's so much stuff there that it could less use. But I mean, there's no way for us to produce any more content now. But also, we're kind of not making monthly content anymore because Stochel was very busy touring. I was very busy with touring and teaching online and teaching at my university. So, but I did notice like more people joining all of a sudden. Still not like the old days, but still like more people. So I'm guessing like people have more time to practice. So they're trying to find content to practice. So that's why I figured maybe DC Music School would also see that rise a little.
Possibly, yeah.
Anything else that you are doing that you wouldn't have been doing if it were not for the pandemic?
So before this, right now I'm supposed to be in Tokyo, but Japan's not doing really well. And before I came to Taiwan, I had already spent 2 months and a half in Japan, and I was going to all the trad jazz jam sessions and gypsy jazz jam sessions. It was a lot of fun. So that kind of music doesn't exist here. I go to the mainstream jazz sessions, so I learn new standards.
So you were just saying is mainstream jam sessions. That's something you would have not have been doing otherwise, right?
Exactly. So I'm learning all the standards that all the music school people know.
Yeah. So what I'm doing, what I would have never been doing if it wasn't for the pandemic is the quarantine sessions. I don't know if you ever saw one of those.
Oh, never did.
It's not meant for you, Dennis. Actually, you're blocked. I blocked the whole Taiwan kind of. No, it's like I'm doing the quarantine sessions. I just put a message on Facebook like, okay, I have all these Sinatra arrangements that I transcribed. Who wants to join? So then a couple of people sent me messages like, yeah, I would like to do it. And I made this first episode with Johnny Carey singing, who did a great job. And then like a week later, and I have a list with like 60, maybe even more now, musicians that really want to join one of those episodes. And so I'm trying to do one a week, but I found it's like a full-time job because I have to communicate with everyone like, here's the part, right? And then they send me something like this recording quality is not good enough. They have to do it again. And then the video is like lower quality than I had like in 1985. So then I have to do the video again. But then, and then I have to edit it and mix and master. But, but I really enjoy it because it's actually the only connection I still have to somewhat of a live performance, right? It's not even live. But it feels like we're performing this tune together, right? It's also, because people ask me, how do you do this? How do you get the people to play like that in sync? And then I say, I make a click. But that's not really, it's not the full story because I do make a click, but I don't make it's not like, okay, it's tempo 115. And what I actually do is I make a click based on how a human would play it. So it's it's like one bar is 115 and the next bar is 116.5 and then it rises like that, right? So it's very difficult to play with that click actually. So a lot of people actually have to practice to be able to play with the click. But the end result is I think that it sounds very much like we're playing together. And that's why I think people wonder how we do it or that they think they must be playing this at the same time because it's yeah.
Are you sure it's not the compression?
We can talk about that later. So, that takes a lot of work to make the click, but I think the result is like, okay, feels very organic because,
That's it. I've not heard anybody else do that. That's really interesting.
Yeah. So, I started doing that because I would be listening to like for the first song, I was listening to the original recording of Sinatra singing, Where Are You? And I noticed, okay, it starts like, I don't know, like 65, but then after 12 bars, they're at 63. Right, so for the first episode, I actually had in my DAW, in my audio program, I had the original track, and then I was timing the click to that original track, which took me forever. So I don't do that anymore. Now I just like take checkpoints every 8 bars to see what the tempo is, and then make organic changes. But yeah, this is kind of a discovery because that really works, but it complicates the recording process. So I've been doing that. And I hope to have a new episode tomorrow, but probably not. Probably it's going to be a little bit delayed. So,
Yeah, it's funny. It's just saying about, it's very easy to take on quite a lot at the moment. Right now, you'll be, especially at the start of quarantine, you're like, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this every day. I'm going to do it, and it's going to be amazing. And then after like maybe 2 weeks, and you're like sweating, and you're like waking up at like 6, like I'm not going to get it out. You go, actually, maybe I'll do it every week. That's that. I mean, I did that with my podcast. I started to, I went too hard. I think it's probably like a reaction to the stressful situation. As soon as something stressful happens, I'm just like, right, I'm just gonna get to work and start doing stuff. But
yeah. But the trick, if you want to keep it up, is to involve lots of people that are counting on you to do it. Because that's the thing. I have this big list of musicians. They're all waiting like to join an episode, right? So, and then But I thought you were talking about like working out or something. Like it's like I'm gonna work out every day for an hour.
I haven't done any working out.
No.
I've not joined that train. I know that a lot of people are. Everyone's running, but I've not done that.
Okay, I have some questions. Before we go on to the next thing. So Matt, they want to know how to join your violin workout.
Well, for the time being, I will. Actually, how do you do it? You know what? I'll put a link at the in the comments.
Okay, yeah, put link in the comments.
If you look for creative violin practice sessions on Facebook, there's a group, creative violin practice sessions. I think that might be it. I've actually forgotten the name of it. You know what? I'm just going to really check it out. I've not done a very good job of advertising this, have I?
Dylan RH is asking if you can do it later because he cannot never wake up in time for your stuff.
Yeah, Dylan. Is Dylan RH from Scotland?
I don't know.
He's got no excuse. We start at 10. But I was thinking of doing one later, actually. Doing a new one later. But maybe we will. Yeah, it's Creative Violin Practice and Jazz Violin Workshops. It's a group on Facebook. Just join that and you get all the information.
Somebody says, Zach is great. Always answering in short time when questions arise.
Good.
That's good. But otherwise he won't get paid, right?
Exactly.
Okay, is there anything else you guys you want to plug something that you're doing right now? Otherwise, we can continue to the next thing.
No.
I've gone hard on the plug. So
okay,
let's go.
So I want to talk a little very shortly about like one of the high points of I think all three of us our year. At least it is for me, and I'm guessing it is for both of you too. And that's of course the Django Festival in Fontainebleau, Samoa, but we're actually talking more about Samro, right? The camping site. For people that weren't here in the beginning, it's just a camping site. It's not that big even. But there's, how many musicians would be there during the festival? Hundreds or?
Maybe, let's say 200.
200?
Maybe, let's say 300 all throughout will pass through, but there's probably at peak, at 150 to 200 peak.
Let's say 200 musicians that all know all the Gypsy jazz standards and love to play them all day, right? So it sounds like paradise to me, and it is paradise because I look forward to that all year. It doesn't matter how many gigs I have playing with whoever. It could be with the Roseburg Trio or with, I don't know, but that it doesn't take away from the fact that I'm so excited to go to this festival, to meet everyone, have a beer, have some bad food in the canteen, and then just take out our instruments. Doesn't matter where we are. We could be in the canteen. We could be somewhere in a grass field. We could be anywhere and just jam some tunes. And then those jams, they can last like 5 hours easily, right? Until you have to go to the bathroom, which is can be difficult, or you want to have a beer. So it is canceled, right? Dennis, it is canceled for sure, right?
Yeah, it is. They announced it. I got the email too.
Yeah.
Because I was supposed to play with Jimmy. And they got the email like, sorry guys, we have to cancel the festival, blah, blah, blah.
So, but the thing is, so I was thinking about it because if there's any place where people are almost like on top of each other, it's this place, right?
Yeah, that's going to be a Corona fest.
Yeah, and but there's no other way because, it's not that big. And like everybody wants to jam and you don't want to tell people like, yeah, you can join, right? It's just everybody wants to jam and it's like the more the merrier. So, do you think it's going to happen next year?
Oh man, I haven't even thought about that. Now you're depressing me.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I don't know, but it's quite far away, though, right?
It is far away. Yeah, it is far away.
If they do well with the vaccine, I don't see why not.
Yeah, that's true. If there's a therapeutic or a vaccine, then I guess.
Be careful of Bill Gates, though.
Yeah, no, and and the nanobots. Watch out for the nanobots.
Yeah, it depends if there's a 5G mast anywhere nearby. If there is, there's no way I'm going anywhere near it.
But I am gonna miss it terribly.
Yeah.
Like
man.
I think about it the thing is I think about it every day. Like, would have been only like
Yeah.
and I think about it all the time during the year. Like, this is a good tune. I know the new tunes. Like, this is a good tune to introduce at the jam session in Samro or something like that. Or I even like the food. The food is terrible, but it's just kind of it's part of the.
I look forward to that. Now you talking about that food, I want the American. That's what I want.
Yeah, me too.
The steak burger.
And those beers, they taste so good there. I don't know why. There's like beer. Yeah. There's like low quality beer, but it's hot. You've just jammed minor swing for 35 minutes, and then you get this beer.
Yeah. No,
Dennis, how about you? You're gonna miss it because you're mostly there to meet all your Sinti friends, right?
Yeah, I will miss it. I miss the barbecues. The really good barbecues.
And you had this new thing going, like the Django Reinhardt camp you had there with
David Reinhardt.
David Reinhardt, yeah.
Oh, well, that's all cancelled.
So. How are they doing? Do you have any contact with them?
Yes, regular contact. They're doing well. They have some savings, so they're okay.
Okay. Yeah, I really hope it's gonna happen next year. But let's say it's not gonna happen, like what I can see happening is that they're gonna make an effort to do the festival, right? Because it's very big terrain, right? They could make some, I don't know, seating arrangements, but that they're gonna not allow the big jam sessions.
I hadn't thought about that. That is really interesting and pretty terrible news.
So then we all have to go to this terrain to pay. Is it 60 euros to enter?
Yeah.
And then not watch any concerts and only jam in those small tents. Yeah.
Jam like 2 meters away from each other.
Yeah.
Sort of all slightly out of time.
How about the UK festivals? Were there supposed to be any UK festivals in this time?
There was supposed to be something in Preston, which was more of a day of Gypsy Jazz that was going to be happening. Wait, is that? Yeah, that was supposed to happen. I don't know if there was supposed to be a London Gypsy Jazz Festival. I don't know if you guys knew that.
Yeah.
I posted on my Facebook, I think, about it. Yeah.
By a violinist who's based in London as
Toby,
well.
right?
Toby.
Yeah.
Toby Medland. He'd put together a sort of citywide, like a citywide festival spanned over a couple of weeks, and that's a real shame that's not happening. And I know that Toby had put a load of work in, and it was going to be great. It's going to be some amazing musicians coming over, and it's a real shame that that's not happening. I really hope Toby manages to keep it going for whenever we're allowed to.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was supposed to happen. I mean, the problem with the UK is it's too cold to jam outside pretty much all year.
There was this one festival that I played a couple of times. Played with Moses.
Wales.
I played with Remy near Gloucester, near Bristol.
IGGF.
Yeah. Stuart.
That's not happening anymore.
No. Okay.
No, I don't think that. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that stopped.
Yeah, I think so. I think I played the last edition, but I think he just had a break for maybe 1-2 years. I think he was gonna start it up again, but if there was any reason to not start it up again.
Yeah, well, he nailed it by not starting up again this year.
He did. Because that's a good point, because that's the other thing, right? I talk to lots of musicians, like say, no, it's gonna come back, and like there will be less rules and we can do concerts. But if I would be a concert organizer, right, and I have a staff to hire and like food to buy and drinks, and I have this hall that I have to keep clean, and I hire sound engineers and all that stuff, organizing costs. Would I be willing to organize a concert, let's say December? Would I be willing to organize a concert in December knowing that there's actually pretty big chance it will just be cancelled?
No.
I wouldn't.
I don't know. Maybe you would. Some people, I think, some crazy people are going to do it, and they will. And those festivals are going to pop off if we're allowed in them, and we're allowed to pop off really far away from each other. But like those festivals will be all right. But I know what you mean. I think there'll be some crazy people who do it.
Hopefully.
And it's just me. The only problem is if there's even 50% less gigs, then there's 50% less work.
Yeah.
For musicians or music-related work for musicians. So, I don't know. I'm really, I don't want to speak for anybody but myself, but for me, if I can't afford to be a musician whilst we're dealing with this global pandemic, I actually don't mind just getting a job that's going to help us out of the situation. I mean, I know music is a important part of life, but if I'm sort of not needed for a little while, I don't mind. I'll come back, but I don't mind. I don't know. Depends.
Andrea says March Manouche, but I think March Manouche actually was the last time last year.
That stopped as well.
Yeah, both
Stuart
Dennis and me
nailed
were there. Yeah.
Maybe these guys knew this was going to happen.
Wait
a minute.
Yeah.
Is there a 5G mast?
Aren't they working for this 5G company?
I think there's a 5G mast in Anglesey. I think that's what it is. We've got it.
So, Dennis, you teach every year at Jungle in June, right? Every year.
So far, yes.
So how many years have you been teaching there?
I don't know. Long time. Almost since the beginning.
Yeah. So this is the first year, of course, it's cancelled, right?
Yep. So sad.
So are you in contact with Andrew? Andrew is the organizer. What's his last name again? Andrew.
Lawrence.
Yeah, Lawrence. Yeah.
Sometimes I shoot him an email, but I think he's really overwhelmed with all this stuff. So
yeah,
it sucks, man.
Because this is supposed to be next month, right? Yeah.
Yeah, in a month. Yeah, in a month's time. Yeah, 1 month to the day, I think.
I have a Skype student. I shouldn't feel bad. I didn't know, but I have a Skype student, and he was like, "Yeah, I wanna immerse myself in this music. What should I do?" I said, "Well, the first thing you should do is, if you want to really immerse yourself more than we can do with Skype lessons, go do a homestay with Dennis."
Yeah.
So then, of course, he said, "Yeah, I sent like 15 messages to Dennis, but he never replies." So I said,
"Never got them."
No, I probably did it wrong. So I sent a message to Dennis. Said, "Dennis, there's no way. I'm booked until like 2023 or something, right?"
Yeah, till next year. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I said, "You know what you should do then? Go to Denga in June." So he bought plane tickets. He booked hotel. It's like, and then we had a Skype lesson last week. Said everything is cancelled. He's still trying to get everything back. It's like, yeah.
Oh man.
Not I think Andrew was really good about it, but like plane tickets. I mean, I actually had plane tickets for New York in like 2 weeks because I was gonna start a podcast.
Oh really?
Yeah, it's called Jazz Violin Podcast 2.0. No. No, I was gonna mostly interview like guitar players or like jazz musicians, but
Dude, you should totally start that podcast. That's gonna. I really like. I'm not talking about the Jazz Violin Podcast. You can try your hardest, but you should do the.
Yeah, but so I wanted to start it because I bought a camera for it.
You would do videos.
I bought equipment for it, like special equipment, and I wanted to start New York, like this thing. I had like interviews lined up with some great people, and I wanted to do it like live streamed on YouTube maybe, or like record it on video and have it on YouTube and as a podcast. Of course, and I still didn't. I KLM, which is the Dutch airline. You cannot get your money back, but you can get a voucher, right? Is that a correct word in English? Voucher.
You guys keep talking.
Yeah, we got vouchers too.
But I still didn't receive any vouchers. So what is Dennis doing?
This is classic.
I'll be right back. What?
It's an absolute classic.
Very professional, yeah. Oh, yeah, I can type it in my screen. What are we talking about?
We're talking about not getting your vouchers back.
Oh, yeah.
Only getting vouchers when you book your plane, and I got vouchers too.
But you got them?
I don't know. I've been so bad with working this stuff out. Basically, we asked for vouchers, and they said, "Yeah, you get your voucher." But I think actually we did see recently that EasyJet or whatever have had so many complaints. Wait, why has it gone to Dennis's picture. It's had so many complaints that they have had to give us our money back, but we're in the middle of trying to do that. Don't know.
Yeah. So, because I was thinking, let's say I have a voucher, so I can rebook until the end of the year. And but I was wondering, so then I go to New York, right? I mean, it might be dead. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, it might be nothing happening. So,
it's well, also the airline could just plummet and not,
yeah.
just go
Well,
bust,
it's
man.
KLM, right? So it's our royal airline, and they just got a promise from the government to be saved. So
There are no promises at the moment.
yeah,
The same thing happened with me, Air Canada. They canceled my flight back home to Canada, and they no refund,
Really? No
Yeah.
refund,
zero.
no voucher,
And-
also.
No, only you can rebook another flight within
Well,
a
yeah,
year.
yeah. That's the same. I mean, it's the
That's
same. Yeah.
terrible.
I mean, I guess they have to do that because if they would give all the people their money back.
We're screwed.
So how's Cyril doing?
Who's who?
Cyril, how's she doing?
Yeah, we're talking about like some collaboration video.
Oh, cool.
That's why. Yeah.
Anything else you guys want to say about this subject? Festivals, playing clubs, jams? Nothing?
Nope.
I don't know, man. You know what? Like I am is it hopefully I'm hopefully pessimistic. That's what I am.
Yeah.
I'm pessimistic that we're gonna have any gigs for quite a while. But at least it's not my fault.
I'm
Like, that's
a roller coaster of emotions. Like one day I feel fine. I feel fine generally.
Yeah.
I feel fine. Like, okay, yeah, it's like I'm doing stuff, I'm making videos, I'm doing this quarantine. Another day I'm very depressed about the fact that I don't see, in my mind, I can see any possibility of live music happening anytime soon. But,
Yeah, no, I'm the same, and I think that it's normal. We're just gonna have to, we're gonna have to deal. Everybody, if you speak to people with jobs, they're all pretty much feeling the same thing. Like everyone's like getting at each other, and we're at the real difficult point now.
yeah.
We've been all locked down for ages. Everything's getting rubbish. I think once things start to ease off, I feel like we might feel better about it. We might, when you can start to see the wood for the trees or whatever.
Yeah, that's another thing. I want to discuss that too much, but I have a feeling a lot of people think that we're locked down to prevent people from getting sick. But I thought the reason was we're locked down so that the hospitals can get more equipment and room for the people that are eventually gonna get sick anyway, right? That was the point,
That
right?
makes sense.
It's like flatten the curve. So, I mean, we're gonna get sick. Like,
Well, I think it's Bill Gates and Hillary Clinton and Obama.
They're all lizards. Wait, you know what? We shouldn't even make these jokes. YouTube's gonna take you down.
yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's true. That's true. They'll be demonetized.
There is literally a light bulb going off somewhere at like YouTube headquarters. Boing!
It's true.
They said it.
Let's not make these
Gonna go
jokes.
down.
Yeah.
No more jokes.
Let's go to our main topics for the day, and we basically have 3 topics. Actually, we talked for a long time about the short topics. So let's try to keep these long topics also kind of short.
You might need to change the name of this video.
Yeah. So because we want to talk about jazz violin, we all are jazz violinists. Like Denis is of course just starting out with violin itself, actually, right? So, but you're not a not jazz beginner. You already know how jazz works,
Yeah.
right? So for violin, it's just a matter of finding the notes on the neck of the violin and
Indeed.
developing bowing technique and stuff.
Exactly.
I've been
Right.
playing jazz violin for a long time. I started, I think, now it must be like 15 years or something. Like I'm doing it professionally. And you, Matt?
How old am I? I don't know. Maybe like I think I got into it when I was about 17, or I got into jazz when I was 17. But I probably haven't been, going for it until maybe when I was 23. I'm 31. So what is that? 9 years? 10
9 years. But you were playing it before, or did you really started 9 years ago?
Something like that. Maybe 9 years. I
Okay.
think something like that.
Because, so you studied at the university, right?
Yeah.
Right. So how many violin players were there?
That there was none. Actually, you know what? There was one other violinist on my in my year. I was really shocked, and everyone else was really shocked as well because it's not. But there just happened to be two that year, and actually that was Lettuce Rowbotham, who actually went on to be on. Was it one of these like shows? What are those shows? They're like when people go and sing.
Oh, really?
she's
Idols or
blonde.
something.
She's
The
blonde,
Voice.
isn't she?
The Voice.
Yeah, Lettuce. Yeah, she's blonde.
I've seen her. Yeah, she
You've
plays
seen her, yeah.
violin. Electric violin. Yeah, I've seen that video.
Electric
I've seen
violin.
it. Okay.
Yeah, I saw her.
She
So,
was
but
on one of those things. It was like it's either The Voice or maybe the X
It's
Factor.
Britain's Got Talent.
ah,
There
okay.
you go.
Oh, okay.
Hey, what are you doing watching Britain's Got Talent?
Yeah.
It shows up. No, because I watch a lot of violin videos.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time watching violin videos on YouTube.
But yeah, so funnily enough, actually there was two of us, but I think after a while she wasn't into the course and she dropped out.
So,
Into
but so
Britain's
the
Got
other
Talent.
instruments were just like saxophone, trumpet, guitar, piano, like, right?
All saxes, a couple of piano players, a couple of bassists.
So because you were
lots of drummers.
surrounded by, let's say, traditional jazz instruments, I guess that you started out immediately like, okay, like what's the harmony of this song? What are the chords? Oh, this is a 2-5-1, right? Is that true?
Yes, I got into it via the music school way, which is like a very theoretical way. Before that, I had sort of done things by ear and not very well, and actually a bit before that as well. After that, just before I went to study, I had lessons with Tim Cliphouse, which gave me a good understanding of how things were working. But I was really at the beginning of my learning at that point, and then I went to college, and that was where I sort of really got things together. And that was, as I said, in that sort of music college way, like we're talking about. It was all about the theory and hammering that home.
So did you at any point thought, okay, this stuff is much harder on a violin than it is on, let's say, saxophone? Did you think that?
There has been points, and I think that the hardest thing, I still just don't know. And actually, I know that you would probably agree with me on this, but I'm still sort of working this out. If I think it's true, the whole key thing,
Yeah,
like
the key thing
different
sucks.
keys.
The key thing sucks. Yeah, I agree with that.
Key,
Yeah.
And I can't tell sometimes whether that's how I've learned in terms of like what the way I see the violin, the way everyone sees their instruments is different. It must be different, right? When I see the violin, I try to see it like it's a piano to some degree. I try and I visualize the notes in some weird way. My fingers go to them, hopefully at the right place, exactly the right place. Often not. And my fingers sort of know where they all are, but I sort of visualize it to some degree. But what I'm talking about is I'm visualizing first position. And then when I go into higher positions, I'm visualizing it in a slightly different way, not as well as I visualize it in first position. And because of that, and I think that's how a lot of violinists see things. And because of that, it means that we're stuck in this very, we're stuck with some things. Some things are easier and some things are better for us. Some things perhaps are a little bit harder. It's a bit like, I know a guitarist and you're a violinist, I am a guitarist, so you're going to know this better than I do. But, if it's I feel like it's sort of like saying to a guitarist, look, you've got this position and you've got to play in all keys. Rather than,
Of course. Yeah, no.
Or even maybe saying two positions. It might be, to level it out a bit, saying to a guitarist, hey, you got to play in two positions, now play this thing in every key. And that's where the difficulty comes.
Well, yeah, but that's of course, that is really something only guitar has that. Right, where you can just, or bass guitar maybe too, where you can just like move stuff around and it like doesn't matter which key it is. But I was more talking about the fact that, because the issue I wanted to really talk about is also something that Dennis is addressing a lot of the time in his, like, you made this like etudes for violin players, mainly for Instagram, right? Where you would just compose a solo over a set of changes for standards, right?
Yeah.
And your purpose was to really outline the changes. Right, that was the purpose of those solos, right? To show.
I did them for myself, though.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Work out the fingerings.
But many violin players actually have recorded them now.
I was very surprised.
Yeah,
they liked it.
but the thing is, so what I was trying to get from you, Matt, but also like Dennis, the thing is, like you actually don't come from a gypsy jazz background, right? You come from like straight jazz, and then you started playing gypsy jazz maybe a little bit later, or like maybe after your college even. Is that true?
You talking about me?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Dennis.
No,
Yeah.
I was just asking, Will Short, if you.
Yeah, I started with sort of more. Just I was very much into the whole. I was like, I want the violin to be played in modern jazz and sort of straight ahead jazz more, and I think it should be done more. And then
So because you come from this straight ahead jazz scene where all the instrument players are talking about changes and like the lessons, and you went to Gypsy jazz, you immediately saw the difference, but also the obvious similarity between the songs, right? It's not like it's also 2-5-1. But if you start with Gypsy jazz, there seems to be a culture. It even seems to be almost hip to not be aware of the chord changes.
I know what you mean.
And the weird thing is that it is so obvious to me when I hear someone play, and I'm not even talking about if I like it or not. It's like, let's take it out of the because there are people actually that I'm pretty sure not aware of the changes, and I still like it. That it's so obvious to me, like, okay, this person is not aware of the changes at all, or like just the main key, right? But maybe not aware that the bridge goes to a different key. And there are people that play guitar, like Gypsy guitar, that do the change, that actually don't hear it when a violin player is not doing it, right? So they can tell, like when a colleague guitar player is playing the wrong chords, they would say, no, it's E flat there, E flat 7. I don't know what you're doing. Oh, okay, I didn't know that. And then the other guitar player would adapt. But then they would be playing with a violin player in a jam session or even in a band, and the violin player is obviously also not aware of the E flat 7. Actually, he's not aware of any of the chords, but somehow you can't hear it as a guitar player. So, because Dennis, you also play both, right? Guitar and violin. Why do you think that is? Why is it impossible to hear that in a violin if you're not a violin player?
Well, first of all, I don't know if it's true that people can't hear if a guitar player is playing the wrong chords. They can visually see. I wonder if they can hear, because sometimes I do see some people playing wrong things and no one catches that. So I think that's one thing, is that people learn to listen to the beauty of the violin, the expression, the vibrato, maybe good time, facial expressions.
Right. But you can hear it, right? You hear it.
In the beginning, I couldn't, but in the beginning, I suspected something. I suspected, wait, not sure I hear the song, like in the lines.
Right.
And then one day, I grabbed my instrument and transcribed it. Wait, it has nothing to do with the song.
But how is it possible? Because I know that you have very good ears, right? Like you hear everything. So how is it possible that you would be? Because you're saying you can see it, but I bet you could hear it on the guitar. I bet you could hear it in the guitar.
I don't know. My ears are not as good as yours, I'll be honest. But now I'm more in tune with it. Yeah.
Okay.
Nowadays, I suspect. I have suspicions when I.
Because I think.
I mean, actually.
Yeah. Go on.
I went to these jazz jam sessions recently. There are a lot of vocalists, and they're scatting, and I can tell. It's like, wait, that's nothing to do.
But I think this is the basis for the fact that there seems to be even kind of a culture sometimes where it's like, if you are a changes player, you're actually not doing it correctly, right? You're not doing it right. It's like, it's too theoretical. You're like a theoretical player, right? So I think.
Someone said that about Quinn Bashan, I think, about his violin playing or something. He had a discussion with someone. It's like, oh, you're focusing too much on theory. And that person couldn't play the changes.
But so the thing is, I understand when I would say to someone, you're focusing too much on theory, it means that I can only hear like scales or something, or it's just only arpeggios up and down, and there's no real statements or no like start of a phrase. But if you would say to Quinn, who is a great player, like amazing player, right, both on guitar and violin and banjo and whatever he played, if you would say to Quinn, you're too theoretical, that makes no sense to me, because he's super musical, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he doesn't play any weird notes, right? It all fits in the harmony. So
he does play weird notes. He plays out.
But he plays out.
Yeah.
In a harmonically.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wonder if that I was asking Matt that if you think it's harder to develop that on violin than it is to develop that on any other instrument, because I can see it. I cannot see that, but
I don't think it's harder. I think the violinists tend to have good ears, right? Like you have to have a good ear to play the violin.
To play in tune, yeah.
Yeah, but as in like, you know, every time you play a note and to play in tune, you basically you have to use your ears, and your ears are working all the time, and our ears are quite attuned to working basically a little bit more. I'm not saying that everyone else doesn't use their ears. I'm just saying that, you know, because of the no frets and it's just big black line in front of you, you know, you've got to have your ears working as well as everything else even to make a sound. And I think that we're quite earsy musicians, and I think that we're happy to go down that path a lot more. Maybe, I don't know. Also, it's not a good theory machine, the violin.
No, that's true.
It's not as a piano. You know, a piano. You can, if you wanted to show someone who didn't know anything about music what a C major chord was, and how you can move that up a semitone, or how you can play that somewhere else. You could show them on a piano, but you couldn't do that on a violin. They'd just be like, all right, cool, nice big black line. I don't know what's going on. They wouldn't be able to see it at all.
But on the saxophone, you can't see it either. And I don't know any high-level jazz saxophone player that
doesn't know how to.
That doesn't know the changes.
That's true.
And the thing is, actually, saxophone players can actually tell if a violin player is not playing the changes.
Oh, of course they can, yeah.
And that's why, because I have this other theory, like when you play gypsy jazz, I think it's starting to change now a little bit, but it used to be, when you play gypsy jazz, you're not taken seriously by serious jazz players, like modern jazz players. And I think one of the reasons is mainly because a saxophone player would hear this violin player play, I don't know, any tune. It's like, what?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
This is just...
the thing is, gypsy jazz is so, you know, and swing, it's very, generally it's very, what's that? It's within a key, you know, if you're playing All of Me, right? It's all in C major.
Really?
No, but hear me out.
Actually, do you know the chords of All of Me?
No, but hear me out. You got to hear me out. Every chord in there relates to C major to some point. It's taking you back to C major. You hear that E7, it's taking you to an A, which is within C major. You know, there's a lot of surprise chords in there. I'd call them surprise chords, but everything relates to C major. And actually, when I'm hearing All of Me as a musician, I'm trying to hear everything in relation to C major, how I'm going to get back to the beginning. You know, You hear that F major to F minor, or whatever you want to play there. You know, C major to A7. That A7, that's not in C major. It doesn't come from C major scale, but it is relating to C major.
If you talk like that, then every chord in giant steps is also related to some chord. I mean,
no, but you hear it. I'm hearing C major. I'm hearing, hey, we're gonna go back to C major soon, and we're back to C major. That's what I'm hearing when I'm playing. I'm sure you are too.
Okay, but what would you think? What would you think?
But what I'm saying is that because of that, it's a lot more diatonic. It's diatonic. There's a lot more diatonicness to gypsy jazz and swing than there is in like giant steps. Like there's no way you're hearing like B all the way through giant steps. Maybe.
No, okay, well, giant steps is a bad example, of course. But if you take a song like like a normal jazz and like It Could Happen to You, right? Yeah. You could say, oh, that's all E flat. Yeah, it's E flat. There's
it goes
some
much further out, doesn't it? It goes to different places.
Yeah, but it all goes to E flat at one point.
Yeah.
Right. But what are you thinking? Let's say you're jamming Limehouse Blues, because I was talking to Denis about Limehouse. Limehouse Blues is like the test, right? And you hear like the
that is a good one, because it's not very easy to theorize that a lot of that is there.
With the first 4 bars and somebody's playing G major.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There you go.
I mean, do you think that sounds good?
No, I'm not saying it sounds good. I don't think you understand what I'm saying. I don't think that sounds good at all. But what I'm saying is that the reason that perhaps you've got a little bit more of that happening is because there's some tunes that they can just about get away with it in.
True.
And there is that feeling of coming home to a key, and there is that key center that's spelt out for us a lot more in gypsy jazz and swing. You know, they just weren't going all over the place as much as they did as time went on in jazz. And just because of that, I think that's why it happens. I hope you don't think that I was saying that you should smash the G major over the whole of
if you were teaching, if you have a student and they would come to you with Limehouse Blues, right? And they'd be playing G major over the first 4 bars, would you correct that?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think you misunderstood what I was saying.
No. I'm just, no. Because what I want to get to is, like, for me, it physically hurts me when I hear that.
Oh, man, 100%. It's really sad, yeah.
Because at one point, there's no more difference between... If you play like that, there's no more difference between Limehouse Blues, Hungaria, Stopping at Decca, and Lady Be Good. Right? You can actually play the same solo over all of those songs if you don't care about the chords, right? Mm-hmm. So when I hear that, it kind of... I think, okay, we're not playing Limehouse Blues now anymore, right? This is another song. I don't know what it is, but the rhythm section is still playing Limehouse Blues.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I mean, there are some players, like you said, who perhaps don't know what's going on. They maybe don't know the chords, but they know that when at the beginning of Limehouse Blues, that if they play a B flat there, that'll be okay, and that'll work out for them. And there's something that's like a different step from. Well, you're talking about like the big G major over the whole thing. That's a completely different place. Like those two players are different people. The person who's hitting the G major over it, the person who's hitting, and then the person who can hear that they should play a B flat or a C at some point over that.
Well, Dennis pointed out there is a very famous. Of course, we're not going to say, but there's a very famous recording with a really big B on the. I think it starts like
it's probably the most famous recording.
Yeah, it's I think it starts with a B, like a very loud B on the C7.
And it ends on B. It also ends on B.
Played on the violin.
On the violin, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And what you're gonna do with the B7? Okay. So Dennis, let's go to solutions. What do you think the solution is? Let's say you're a violin player and you're aware of this thing in yourself, like, okay, yeah. That's true. When I play a solo on Limehouse Blues and on Lady Be Good, there's not that much of a difference, I guess. What do you propose? What is the solution?
Are we talking about the top 3 things?
No, just like what would be the solution? Yeah, maybe that it would go to that depends on your top 3.
Something what Matt was saying about violinists having very good ears, and I see that ties into the fact that a lot of times these players that don't play the changes kind of get away with it because they hear that certain notes do work without knowing why. So they go towards that note like B. That's why a lot of people who miss the changes in Limehouse Blues, they don't play the changes, but they play G minor pentatonic over C7, and it kind of works, right?
No, that works.
It kind of feels all right because they have good ears. And as to why saxophone players know the chords, because it's in their culture to know the chords. The saxophone is a jazz instrument.
Right.
The violin is not a harmonic instrument traditionally, so they don't get taught that traditionally.
Yeah.
So I think that's the main difference.
That is a very simple and point, and I think it probably explains it. To be honest,
I think that explains. That's what my point is. Like, it's the culture, right? If you're a saxophone player and you don't do that, then you won't be taken seriously by your colleagues. It's just the way it is, because the culture of saxophone is Charlie Parker and Joe Coltrane and Lee Konitz, right? All these monster players that were outlining the changes in very interesting and musical ways. So if you're not going to do that, Dexter Gordon, too many to name. If you don't do that, then, I mean, you're not playing jazz. That's what they would say. They're not playing jazz anymore. Yeah. But with violin, unfortunately, there is people that are very good violin players, actually, that became very well known. And they are great players, musical, swinging, but they might not be aware of all the chord changes. So if you start copying that, that automatically means that you're also not aware of the chord changes. So
yeah, that's true.
And
it's a culture thing. But I mean, there are more and more violinists who are coming out and busting changes out, and I guess that's just change, eh?
I think it's an even spread. I think for every violin player that enters the Gypsy Jazz that plays the changes, there are 2. But also enter that don't do the
But there used to be probably a different spread, right?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. I have a theory though that it's also a big culture because violin is an extremely difficult instrument to play. I can tell you that. And these are people who are so accomplished. They spend years, torturing themselves to be able to play well, but they always neglected the harmony side. And then they find out they have to learn harmony. It's like this
Yeah.
discourage, like
Yeah.
True. Yeah, no, I feel that. Yeah. I guess let's go to our last topic. We all prepared a top 3 jazz violin starter tips.
yeah.
And we
Yeah, we
didn't
did
discuss
see
our top 3s with each other. So it could happen that my number 3 is Matt's number 1 or vice versa.
Maybe we've not got anything in common.
Don't say don't say it. Just wait until we're at number 1, and then you can explain why it's your number 1 and and not your number 3.
Okay.
So
Let me just find mine first. But yeah, no, you carry on.
I'll just so I asked you guys to make a top 3, and I also asked you guys to come up with the context and how you rank them, why you rank them that way, like what's the context. So my context is that you want to get ready to improvise over standards. That's your goal, right? So your goal is, you heard could be gypsy jazz, could be normal jazz. You heard Autumn Leaves, and you heard the minor swing, and you just want to be able to play on those songs, and you want to play the changes. So that is my context, yeah? And I'm going to assume that you love jazz and you listen to it all the time. Because otherwise, of course, if you don't do that, if it's just like somebody tells you should learn jazz, then of course the number 3 would be listen to as much jazz as possible. But for me, I'm going to assume you love jazz, you listen to it all the time, and you want to play it. Okay, so I'm going to start with my number 3, and then Dennis does his number 3, and then... So my number 3 is that you find a song that you want to learn first, and then you transcribe as many themes as you can find. So you go to famous recordings, let's say it's All the Things You Are, and you listen to how Charlie Parker plays the theme, you write it down or you learn it, and you listen to Dexter Gordon, and you listen to Thelonious Monk, I don't think he recorded it, but, and then you learn how to, the first thing you will learn is that you can vary that theme in many different ways. So that way you don't have to worry about chords yet. You don't have to worry about what lines to play over the chords. You can just work with the theme and get your first taste in varying lines, right? Beautiful lines, actually, by just transcribing real masters playing that theme in different ways. And if you do that, there might even be embellishments, or they might deviate from the theme. So you'll get your first taste in lines. But at least you're not busy with theory yet, but you have to pay attention to inflections and the timing they play it with, right, and the sound. So that would be my number 3 tip. My number 3 tip would be find a song you want to learn and learn as many different ways to play the themes by transcribing masters playing that theme. What are your thoughts? You like that?
I do.
Well,
it makes a lot of sense.
What's your number 3, Dennis?
But that's the thing. Your context screwed everything up because I can't start with number 3.
No, you have to. No, you have to make your own context. You make your own
Okay,
context.
but then I have to start with number 1 because it's in progressive order. And number 1 is to ask yourself why you even want to play jazz violin. And I think this is very important because a lot of people say, "Oh, I'd like to learn to play jazz violin. I'll go sign up for lessons." That never works because that's what happened with Maxim Vengerov and D.D. Lockwood.
Right.
He took lessons with them, but never went anywhere. Because it was more like, okay, you're going to tell me how to learn jazz, but you have to have this drive to do it on your own. That's number 1. You're listening all the time. That's the initial drive. So you already have it in your ear. That's my number 1.
Okay, let's call it number 3 then. Otherwise, it gets very confusing. Right? No, but
all right.
My context shouldn't be your context. Your context is completely different. But I want to.
Okay, that would be my number 3. But that is the context is the number 3.
Yeah. But I actually. The reason I gave my context is because this happens a lot. What you just said happens a lot, right? It's a classical violin player, and either a friend of theirs plays jazz, right? It doesn't even have to be a violin player, and that tells me, oh, it's really fun to play jazz. You should play jazz, or like they pick it up somewhere, but they actually have never listened to jazz. Of course, yeah. Then figure out if you really want to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good one. Matt.
So yeah, I mean, I've got a different context to you, I guess. But if we're staying within the same context as you, then my number 3 is the pretext to your context in a way, because it was to listen as much as you can. But I can elaborate. I guess the main thing, and it works well with what we're talking about, is to listen to instruments that aren't the violin. And actually, you know, for a lot of the reasons that we said, if you go to jazz violin and you type in jazz violin, you might listen to some music there that isn't described as wouldn't always be described as jazz to some people, by some people. And actually listening, you need to, if you want to play jazz violin, I agree with Dennis, you've got to want to do it, and you've got to realize why you want to do it. And you probably, it has to be because you've listened to jazz and you've said to yourself, I can do this on the violin, and
right.
and I want to do this with my instrument, and I love jazz so much, and it takes a lot of listening to other instruments that aren't the violin.
I like that. So yeah, so you're basically saying you shouldn't only listen to violin, but you should listen to lots of different, maybe even listen more to other instruments, maybe, right?
Yeah, but even if you want to say you want to sound like, Grappelli, you still need to know the context for what jazz is a little bit more, because Grappelli is not the only jazz. And if you're like, right, I want to play 1930s jazz on the violin, then you want to be listening to even just the context that he had jazz in,
right.
And because his interpretation of jazz, he probably had never, when I'd heard Venuti, but he hadn't heard many people playing jazz violin. He'd just heard jazz. He just heard what was being played.
Louis Armstrong.
Louis Armstrong. Same with Django. He had just heard jazz. He hadn't heard, his style. And this is the thing, is you just need to get more context. And I think getting outside of violin helps you do that.
Okay, let's change the order. Dennis, what's your number 2?
So it's a follow-up of number 3. You already have a reason. You heard something that you like and you want to be like that. So then you gravitate towards that by learning the songs that you like, and then the melodies that you like, and trying. So when you learn the song, you want to learn the melody, the same as you, like as many versions as possible, listen to so many different recordings, but also try to get someone to teach you the harmonies if you don't, and try to relate the melodies to the harmonies so you understand that there's actually a reason why that melody is played over that harmony.
But how would you do that second, because that second part is actually pretty difficult already, right?
That's why if you can't do it on your own, you have someone teach you, or you get a real book or something, or combination or something.
Okay, but for that step, actually you have to study some harmony then also, right?
Well, someone would have to teach you the chords, and you can do double stops, baby, or arpeggios with bass lines.
That is actually a big step, a big number 2, but that's going to take
double
years.
Stops. Double stops is a big step.
Number 2, because if you start with minor swing, it's not a big deal. It's like you can do simple double stops.
Yeah, so it's important to choose a good song. Yeah.
Chances are, if you get into gypsy jazz, you get into Dark Eyes first, you get into minor swing first, which are easy songs. That was what it was for me.
What's your number 2, Matt?
My number 2 was a little bit more technical in terms of, I really find that, what we're talking about, it's really difficult for violinists, or it seems like it's difficult for violinists to learn the changes, and it's because in my opinion, a lot of it is because we don't play the changes. We don't see chords in front of us. We don't have to play them in any of our development as a violinist. We don't have to know what chord is anywhere. So it doesn't happen to us and very often, and then suddenly you've got to be following the chords in your head. So it's difficult. What I always suggest to people who are first getting into it is to learn to play through changes like they're a bassist. So starting off with, depending on where that person is at, theoretically, making
as a starter. So it's starter tips, right? So let's say it's a classical violin player, doesn't know lots about harmony.
Yeah, but so they won't know much about harmony. But what I've found is most people who are classical, who have gone far enough with classical violin, they know what you're talking about when you say triad. And you say, what's a C major triad? All right, and they tend to know what a flat, that a dominant chord has a flat 7 on it, and they tend to know that a minor chord is made out of. It's just they know what a minor triad is. So I always say the first thing to do is to try and play through the tunes like you're a bassist, starting off with a 2 feel, or even starting off with 1 chord per bar, looking through it, thinking in triads, and that's it. And you might get stuck, especially if you don't know what's going on. You might see some chords in there that you don't understand. There might be loads of chords, but I think it's good to simplify chord changes as well and take away some chords and think about what's the bass harmony of that tune. But that's a separate point.
It's funny because we all have more or less the same number 2. Because my number 2 actually, it literally is drilling arpeggios.
There you go.
And I mean it like for the song that you just learned a theme for, that you would just look up. It's like, oh, okay, let's say you're doing All of Me, right? Yeah. So it's like, what's the first chord? It says C6 or C major 7. It doesn't matter what your chart says, right? You would just look up the notes for it. It's like, oh, it's C, E, G, A.
Yeah.
And let's just play that from the G string, like let's say first position, up and down, right? Doesn't even have to be in time in the beginning. Just find all those arpeggios. But I'm against the idea of learning all the arpeggios, like all the chords. Just do it per song, right? So I'm just going to learn C6, I'm going to learn E7, and I'm going to learn A7 and D minor, right? I don't have to learn B flat minor. There's no B flat minor in All of Me. So and then I would do that in time. So I would put like a backing track and just play quarter notes, or eighth notes. But that's already more difficult.
So we all have the same number 2.
Yeah, but more or less the same number 2.
Yeah, that's good.
It's the same because
Yeah, but it's funny because we none of us started actually with this, like learning the chords, right?
Well, I started on guitar, so I knew when I played the violin, I already knew the chords.
Yeah, but this is not for you. This is for starters, for beginners, right? Because the reason I didn't do that is really hard to do for a violin player, right? So I don't want. If you start doing that, then you might actually stop learning jazz. So that's why I first went to the themes, and then went to first listening. You both actually went to first listening or question your motives. Do you really love it? Because that really annoying work of learning those arpeggios is probably only bearable if you really love it, if you find a reason to love it, right? So let's go to number 1. So now, Matt, what's your number 1? You start. Your number 1 starter tip for jazz violin.
So my number 1 starter tip for jazz violinists is to change your perception of how you see like scales and arpeggios and how you play them and how you think about them, because it's when you learn as a classical violinist, you say you're taught C major, and you're taught it from probably you're taught from like second finger in second position, and you're taught to go up to whatever, maybe fifth position if you're doing your higher grades. But that's what you're taught, and you're taught that is what C major is, and that on your violin you might have done some theory stuff, and you will also have done some inversion stuff, but no one explained those inversions to you. What they have said to you is, look, you got to play that C major scale. You got to play it from here to there. That's what the scale is. You got to perform that scale for me, and it's got to sound amazing, and you're going to do it exactly the same way every time. And that's what it is, and that's what a scale is. And that is a completely different way to how a jazz musician sees a scale. A jazz musician, or certainly myself, and I think most jazz musicians, we see it as like a framework.
Right.
That we can work from, and it maybe isn't how I don't think everyone should just learn their scales and that's how they play. I'm not saying that, but it is, we see scales. If we do think in scales, we see scales and arpeggios in exactly this way. You see it as a framework, and you don't see it as something to show your teacher. And in classical music, a lot of the time, depending on how far you've gone, your scales are something to show your teacher that you've practiced.
So is that what you do in your Zoom lessons, like this approach to scales?
Yeah. Well, it's not a big change. All you've got to, what we'll do in the sessions, we'll say, all right, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to look at C major, but we're staying in first position. So what's the first note? And or I won't even say what's the first note. I'll say let's play it 1, 2, 3, G or whatever.
Right.
And most people won't start on G; they'll start on C. I'll stop and I'll say, I'm just trying to hammer this home. When I say C major, we're in first position. That's what I mean. It's G to B, basically.
Right. It's like the lowest note possible.
The lowest note possible.
To the highest note possible in the first position. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go second now. So my number 1, it's a little bit of a long sentence. I'll just read it. It's like, start working on your concept of timing, rhythm, swing eighth notes by using a metronome and playing along with recordings. Because this is the hardest thing about playing jazz. It's probably different for everyone, but I assume that many classical players find that very hard to actually play something that is locking in with the groove, right? So I think you can't start early enough with this. So that's why it's my number 1, right? So
that's true.
I find it the most important thing, but I don't think it's the first thing you should do because it might take away a little bit from the fun you're having. But as soon as you're drilling those arpeggios, this is going to go into it, right? You're putting this metronome and you're going to play like quarter notes on that metronome, maybe every beat or 1 and 3 or 2 and 4. And then you're going to play eighth notes like that. And then you got to swing those eighth notes with the metronome or play along. And then you can use your transcriptions of those themes, right? But you could also transcribe solos. Play along with recordings and see if you can match the timing on that recording. So that's my number one tip. Combined with your tip, that would actually be a great workout, right? So you take your scales, start looking at the scales in a different way, and then you start drilling them, working on your swing eighth notes.
You know, I actually think that it works really well in conjunction with the walking thing, actually. You know, because actually keeping on with that walking thing, keeping on going up and down those arpeggios, not going up in eighth straight away, but actually starting to just go I'm singing a blues there, terrible blues. But you know, playing it like that, doubling each note, basically doubling each quarter notes. That's a very good way to do it.
Dennis, the final words for Dennis. What's your number one?
Number one. So everything relates to all the previous ones. So if you love jazz, chances are you discovered someone that you like. Let's just say it's going to be Grappelli. So you're going to study Grappelli's lines on songs that you have trouble with, but it's not enough. Let's say you learn the entire solo. And I know a lot of violinists do this. I know a lot of classical violinists who transcribe shit tons of Grappelli, but they still don't know how to improvise. And in fact, they always have to start from measure 1. They can't start from the middle or anything, because they're not activating the part of the brain that relates what they're playing to the harmony, to the song. So they have to transcribe, lift the stuff that you like, and try to make sense of it.
So could you call that learning licks or not?
I call it learning vocabulary.
Okay,
it doesn't have to be an entire solo, and it doesn't have to be from Grappelli. You take from, because that's what I used to do on guitar. There's something I did. It was a song I had, Djangology. I didn't know how to improvise over Djangology, so I listened to tons and tons of different players over the A section just to see what they did. It's like, oh, cool, this person does this person does that.
Yeah. So yeah, learning vocabulary. Actually, that's funny because I never had that. In my 3 tips, there's nothing about learning vocabulary.
Yes, true.
Well, but here's the thing: from the vocabulary, so you want to make sense of what's going on, and then let's say if Grappelli's playing G minor over C7 in Limehouse Blues, but just like 3 notes, but then you want to take the whole thing like in first position, G, B flat, D. So you want if he plays if Grappelli plays A melodic minor over A minor, but just like 3 notes, like E, F sharp, D sharp, A. Well, you want to take the whole position. Yeah.
So what you're saying is you should transcribe it, lift things, but then also analyze it and take the concepts, right? Yeah. That's a good tip. That's actually what I do mainly, right? That's actually what I still do. Just lift ideas and look at the concept and try them out. So that is probably the main practice for every jazz musician for their whole lives, right? Because you discover a new artist, like what the hell is he doing, right? So guys, thanks so much for joining me in this live stream. I think we went for a long time. How long did we go?
That is a
2 hours, man. Jeez, 90 minutes. It's gonna be as long as my YouTube video that I'm gonna upload tomorrow.
To end, do you have anything to plug? Your own channel? Let's say one more time, Dennis. What's your stuff? Where can people find your stuff?
I did make some violin content on my YouTube channel, like free YouTube videos about violin and other things. So my YouTube channel, Denis Chang. I don't know what my YouTube channel is.
I will link your YouTube channel in the description. But there's your YouTube channel. There's your Instagram, right? There's lots of stuff there.
Yeah. And then
you're called DC Music School there, yeah. And what else do you have? You have your DC Music School. You have your homestay program. Are you still doing that?
It's all canceled for the year, so.
Yeah. They're all just in Canada waiting for.
Yeah. And Matt, your stuff. You have the podcast.
Yes, I've got the Jazz Violin podcast, and I have Locked in the Green Room podcast, and I've got these Zoom sessions, and just I don't know, loads of stuff. If you can find a lot of it on my website, which is just mattholborn.com.
Good, cool.
But as in, I'd quite like to plug the Locked in the Green Room thing. I'm really enjoying doing those things and the Zoom things. But we'll put a link underneath.
Super nice. If you like this video, maybe like it. If you dislike it, hit that thumbs down twice.
Hi, Jimmy.
That's a good one.
It's not mine.
Okay.
Maybe subscribe to the channel. I think I'm gonna do more live streams with other guests, depending on how many people watch this video. I'm guessing like thousands because I have these two famous people here. And thanks,
They're all
Dennis. Thanks, Matt. And I'll catch you guys soon, hopefully.
Thank you.